Good afternoon. It's clearly the start of the 2024-2025 school year, and here is our first Academic Affairs Committee meeting of the year. I am Dr. Damian Johnston. I serve as the district's Assistant Superintendent, and I'm pleased to welcome you all this evening. There are members of our Board of School Directors, members of our administrative team, and our 2 to 3 of our student representatives are here with us today, so I'm real excited to see everyone. We have a full agenda today, so I'm going to get us started. Today, we have some new members that I'd like to take a moment to introduce. We are going to have Mr. Lutz talk to us about our Power School and Schoology project, which has finally come to fruition after several years of planning and preparation. So we'll talk a little bit about where we are with that. We're going to talk about technology integration and student use and some shifts and changes and framework that we're using for the coming year. And then as a result of those, we have a couple of changes to the code of conduct, particularly for the high school that we approved in the spring, a revision that we'd like to make for the coming year. So we're looking for committee review and approval to proceed. We have a lot of new faces. Our first time visiting in public at a public meeting is Dr. Aberle, joining us as a new member of our school board. And I'm pleased to welcome you to this committee and to Academic Affairs. Welcome, Dr. Aberle. Our new middle school principal is able to join us today. So while she hasn't officially begun, she's definitely started to make her presence known and has been visible at a variety of meetings. Dr. Amy Mangano is here today. And 3 of our student representatives are here. Isaac Darga is here. Welcome, Isaac. Anya Geinesman is here. Anya, your name got cut off my slide. I will fix it. I apologize. And Sophia Gotti joined us also today. So I'm really excited to have 3 student representatives. So much of what we talk about here in Academic Affairs obviously has a significant impact on our students. And so I love having their voice at this meeting and sharing their perspectives and insight. And of course, even though this is your first meeting, as I mentioned to you in your email, jump in, add any questions or comments that you might have. Okay, excellent. Without any further ado, Mr. Lutz and our major upgrade to our student information system, Power School and Schoology.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about Power School and the Schoology update. So on the next slide, there we go, Power School. So we did transition from eSchool to Power School on July 15th. Parent portal information went out on August 13th. And as of Tuesday, we had over 4,000 parent logins. That means people are creating their accounts and able to access the information on the parent portal that we want them to access. We are in the process of currently confirming the integrations with all the other systems. There's a ton of systems that are coming into Power School that we need to make sure are getting data back and forth, and we're working on that. So everything is on track for a smooth start to the school year. We're doing ongoing training and support for staff as well. Just wanted to let you know if there are any troubles or problems with the parent portal or other things like that, to reach out to your schools, and any technical issues are coming to my team, and we're taking care of them as quickly as we possibly can. So the next slide, we're going to talk about Schoology. So this is the new learning management system for the students at the middle school and the high school this year. Expectations have been shared with the teachers about the use of Schoology. Rosters and classes have been successfully rolled over and are available to the teachers. And soon we will be giving students access to Schoology for the start of the school year. And also they'll have access to that portal as well. So that's what's going on with Power School. Any questions?
Anybody? I just want to congratulate Mr. Lutz. When he walked in the door last September and joined our team, we were already in process. We'd already made some decisions, and it was left in his lap to actually do the heavy lifting. And so to his credit, in leadership with his new team, he forged his way forward. And it has been, there have been some behind the scenes challenges, but hopefully the public's experience and our student and our faculty's experience is smooth, and they don't see any of the challenges that greeted you and your team from behind the scenes. So congratulations, Mr. Letts, on getting us here. That was a heavy lift. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other comments about that? All right. Our primary focus this afternoon is to really bring forward recommendations we'd like to make about some changes in our practices and a further articulation of our framework for technology integration and student use here in our school district. And so, Dr. Yannicone, I'm actually going to ask you to get us started, and then I'll take it from there when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Wanted to just begin by sharing a little bit of an overview of where we've been over the last 18 months or so. We had some initial concerns raised by some members of the community in the spring and summer of 2023. So for board members who are newer and for our student representatives and anyone who is watching this, we had some initial questions and concerns around student access, our filter systems, and the ways in which technology was being used in the classrooms by our staff. We had some additional concerns raised that following fall, and there were some members of the community who had conducted an internal survey of some members of the community and shared those results with the board and with the administration. We reviewed those survey results and then conducted a broader survey to all district families later that fall. Last fall, and then we took that information from the surveys and our analysis in working with our faculty and staff and doing classroom observations and walkthroughs, as well as having extensive conversations with our administrative team. And we turned that over into district-wide presentations last November at each of our schools that were targeting a particular age group. So we had one presentation at each school last November where we spoke to our building principals and Dr. Johnston, focused on the ways in which our teachers are integrating technology, our technology philosophy and approach, and our responses to some of the concerns that had been raised. And then we also followed up with presentations to student groups, in particular at the middle school and the high school that winter. Those presentations Mr. Lutz took care of, and they were focused on safety, social media use, and in particular, most importantly, I think, quite frankly, was the ways to be safe online and not be a victim, whether you are a student or an adult, when you're using social media sites. And then we had a summary of our response to those community concerns and some agreed upon next steps that we worked on through last winter. And then we offered a series of parent and family workshops over the course of the school year to help parents to understand some of these concerns and ways in which the district was trying to be responsive with regard to filtering, with regard to some of the dangers of social media, the ways in which some systems might have been being misused by some of our students, both at school and at home. And we continued to hear concerns last spring, most recently at our June Board of School Directors meeting. Over the summer, as you heard me share this past spring, our administrative team had planned to study and take some action, really study the problem more broadly. And that information, Dr. Johnston and our team of administrators are going to share with you tonight, including steps that we would like to take and communicate to the community, assuming that the board will agree with the steps we are planning. So Dr. Johnston, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Dr. Yannicone. So I think what we took away from the concerns that we'd heard from students and families, and quite frankly, our faculty as well, were concerns around student mental health and wellness and the impacts technology was having for those students in a variety of ways. Adolescent use of social media has received so much media attention, and we were not alone in experiencing those concerns. We heard broadly concerns of students having their own access to YouTube in grades K through 8 was of a concern to our families and our community. Smartwatch and cell phone use has had a great increase at the particularly at Erdenheim, although we perceive and understand that may begin to actually see even in the second grade at Enfield. So those was a concern. We heard loud and clear concerns around Chromebooks at lunch, up to and including some presentations from families at our final board meeting of the school year in June. And finally, one that you cannot escape is cell phone usage at the high school. And we'll talk a little bit about a pilot that we did last year just to see how it would work within our community, and then where we landed as it came into this school year. I've been with the district for a long time. This is my start of my 9th year. And every year we have an opportunity to think about how we can work collectively and collaboratively with our community being students themselves, families, and our broader Springfield Township community. None of us, any one of those 4 groups, is not able to handle most problems by themselves. But also no one of those groups can own all of the responsibility by themselves. I think the way that we know lots of problems have been solved is by having a collaborative focus amongst all 4 groups, helping to ensure that students are getting what they need, because we want healthy habits. We want students to be effective in their learning, and we want them to go on to graduate into the pathways of their future that they choose. And so throughout this conversation today, we'll talk about sort of really working hand in hand with students, with families, with the community, and our school personnel to ensure that we're doing everything we can to help meet those expectations. And so we know that, as we talked about in the last year, we've spent a lot of time really thinking about what is the role of educational use of technology. We really want to make sure that it's an instructional tool. We don't do things so we can use the technology. Technology is an opportunity in which we can lean into to have access to or create or produce information, materials, and making sure the students have a chance to use it to augment and expand their learning. Pennsylvania has just launched brand new technology standards last June that we're still looking to figure out how to integrate. And so that's the work of this coming year's curriculum project, is looking at how we craft our technology standards into our school programming. We continue to teach digital citizenship and core technology skills. Digital citizenship receives direct instruction for students, grades K through 8, and then core technology skills expand from K to 12, really helping students understand in this 21st century the ways in which technology can be a tool for them in a variety of ways. But that doesn't mean it's independent and unfiltered. We're careful to support monitored and structured learning. We want to make sure we know the ways in which students are accessing their technology device and what they're using it for. We've heard rumors or perspectives that we only ever use the Chromebook or we only ever use those digital devices. And I want to assure the public and, of course, the members of our board of school directors that we really do seek, and the evidence of being in and out of our classrooms and is that we have a balance of digital and hard copy materials. Some students prefer to read their digital textbooks. Some prefer a hard copy textbook. We make available what students request or what they need in ways that make sense in each of the courses that we offer. And ultimately, we're looking to enhance and extend learning and engagement. We know a lot about how students learn, the research, and we continue to focus on providing easy access and modifications for students who need it. I myself, for example, am a much better visual learner than an auditory learner. So having images for me personally is always something that's helpful. And many of our learners have their own ways to learn. Using technology as a way to provide those has been beneficial. And so, as you've heard me talk about for the 3 years that I've served as the assistant superintendent, and before me, creating engaging, rigorous, and intentional learning spaces has been the focus of, up to and including, our instructional cabinet leadership retreat yesterday. Really continuing to work on how can we create spaces where students feel engaged and challenged, but also that we're intentionally using technology to help them to learn and to grow. As we said, we're using activities that are both digital and non-digital. Kids are up and moving through their school day in most spaces. That is not from the time they walk in till they leave that there's a screen involved. We've talked about digital citizenship and online behavior. And ultimately, under Mr. Lutz's leadership with his team, we continue to expand the use of and being really mindful of cybersecurity as well as filters. And no filter is perfect, but we're responsive. And as soon as we learn of something going awry or some student figuring something out, we've worked really hard both internally and with our providers to ensure that we can address it. Mr. Lutz, did I get that? Awesome, okay. So what does that mean? So we've given a lot of thought to how we'd like to proceed. And so the two things that are really beginning to be a problem at the elementary level is the need for smartphones, for cell phones and smartwatches coming into the school building. As I said, that's primarily been an issue at Erdenheim. That has been an issue in the past with the cell phones. We've had clear policies and procedures in place at Erdenheim that those phones are expected to be silenced and placed in backpacks, because we do recognize that they can be a vehicle for family communication with their child for after school activities. Children who come to childcare before or after school or go somewhere else, families may need to be in touch with them, but that isn't true during the school day. We want our communication at school and during the school hours to filter through our school office, which has been our practice. But in the recent year, particularly last spring, we really saw an increase in the use of smartwatches by our students. And they were receiving texts from friends who are in other parts of the country or the world who were not in school at that time, or from family members who just wanted to get a message to them. And we found that students were becoming increasingly distracted by those devices. So as we've said, we're asking students to silence, if they need to bring them because of out of school communication that's needed for them, we want it in their backpacks during the school day and silenced. Members of our school board of directors, any concerns from that clarification? Mrs.
No,
Bell?
but I just want to say I'm 54 and I don't even own a smartwatch and I can barely operate my iPhone. So the fact that you have kids in the lower schools that have smartwatches is insane to me.
We do, and I think what's I have young children. I have children. They're not young. I have children that I understand what you're talking about. The things they can do that I don't even understand. While this has not been a tremendous issue at Enfield, I want to be really clear about that. This is a proactive move that we're just trying to be clear that we're not inviting families or children to bring those devices into the school either. Let's not get started. So, is this something we are comfortable proceeding with?
Yes,
Dr.
I
Aberle, I
am.
think you're talking, but I cannot hear you. I'm sorry, Dr. Taratusky, go ahead.
That's okay. No worries. Yeah, I am completely comfortable with this. I'm just curious about your thoughts regarding how we're going to communicate this to parents. And because I fully expect that while there is a contingent of families who will welcome this kind of restriction, there are also families who may struggle with this. So just wondering what our plan is for that.
Sure. Dr. Yannicone and I have worked with our administrative team to craft a newsletter pending approval from this committee that we're okay to proceed. It will actually go out tomorrow to the school community announcing these changes, and then the principals will work to communicate it, to do follow-up communication with their families on the changes that apply specifically within their schools.
Okay. Thanks.
Dr. Aberle, did you fix your sound? You'll let me know? You know, text a message, typing in a message?
Dr. Aberle, you could also use the chat feature if you'd like us, and then Dr. Johnston could read.
She's calling in on her phone at the same time,
Ah, okay, understood.
but I still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yay, hello. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my headset, so I'm using my phone.
It's all right.
I just wanted to just highlight, obviously there are some other types of devices that students use for communication, etc. So being a parent of a child that has an AEC, just to try and call out, you know, especially for like the younger grades where that may be the case, where kids do have an iPad with them all the time, just making sure that, you know, that is respected, covered, that students understand that there may be devices that kids actually do need to use all of the time, that look like an iPad or similar.
Sure, and we're really aware of that, and we've talked about that this is particularly sort of those independently purchased and not driven by a plan. We have some students, for example, who have healthcare management that happens through a phone or an iPod. Those are completely allowable and they're part of an individual healthcare plan, but they're individual circumstances. And I think we continue to normalize sort of a range and variability of our students and what they need their devices for. There are some students, for example, who use their Chromebook, their school issued Chromebook, to type while other children are writing because for them that's appropriate. So we're sort of beyond, we're talking about more the devices that might have
Yeah.
only come from home.
Yeah, no,
But
I think
appreciate you
it's just
calling it
making
out
sure,
because it's important.
yeah, no, and I think it's just like as a community, like especially younger kids that may struggle with understanding, well, why have they got an iPhone and I can't have mine, sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's just how do you get that balance right, but you know, appreciate that that's being considered. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Anything else about this, about the elementary schools? Not going to lie, that's an easy sell for many people, understanding that our K-5 students, we're going to limit their technology. We heard a lot about concerns around YouTube and how to proceed. And so after careful deliberation from the building administrators, Mr. Lutz, myself, Dr. Yannicone, talking with some of our students, even in our Erdenheim and middle school advisory groups, we've made the decision to, as of July 1st, we began whitelisting YouTube in grades K-8. And so what whitelisting means, and Mr. Lutz, you're going to correct me if I don't get this quite right, even though I've practiced and I think I'm good. Whitelisting allows a classroom teacher or an educational professional staff member to allow a YouTube video through that we believe has educational value and purpose. And so we know that some students really benefit from seeing a visual model or watching a film or listening to a song as a part of our learning. But the faculty will select those materials and make them available to students. Students will not be able to access materials of their own selection in grades K-8. Additionally, our filtering system line-wise will continue to filter and alert our technology team when there are security breaches. That does happen, and there are pieces of material that get through that filter, K-12, and so our team is rapid to respond to those as either when we're alerted or someone lets us know, one or the other. And so open and continued communication with our families and our students and our staff continues to be critical. Mr. Lutz, did I miss anything?
You did great.
Thanks. You're a good teacher. Next is our middle school changes. We did a lot of work this summer at the middle school trying to decide the just right amount of balance that we want students to have access and how independent do we want our middle level learners to be. And ultimately what we have decided is that middle level learners, for the most part, need to be in the cafeteria and do cafeteria kinds of things, talk to their friends, hang out, and build on those social and interaction skills that we know are so important at the middle level. And so we have worked, Dr. Yannicone, the members of the school board, as you know, and our business manager has worked to free up additional funds that we had within our budget. We've repurposed some of them to hire 2 additional monitors for the lunchroom at the middle school. And to do that, we have opened up additional space, and you may have even seen a peek around this information where we're requesting games and puzzles that students would have access to during the lunch hour. So we're redesigning the current framework of the middle school cafeteria to expand the space. We've added adults to ensure high levels of supervision, but we will be removing Chromebooks from the cafeteria. If students bring them to the cafeteria, we've purchased and have installed holding materials, shelving, couldn't come up with my word, shelving where they can store their Chromebook. They can also return it to their locker, and then they can pick it up after lunch and go on to their next class. For students for whom they've used, and there are some who on any given week are busy outside of school and used lunchtime and their Chromebook in the cafeteria to complete homework, that option still exists for them. They can work with a classroom teacher, and each grade level will have a teacher available. The middle school leadership is working on that, to have someone available within the team to provide that oversight, or they may go to the library. Those are places that their Chromebook under supervision will still be permitted to be used. Any questions for me about that one? guess I should have asked about the questions about the YouTube thing too, but I think I moved past it.
I
So
did
either
have a
way,
question about YouTube, Dr.
Great.
Johnson. I wasn't sure if
Mrs. Hughes,
we were
I was-
waiting until
Yeah.
until all of them. I just on that last slide for the YouTube, when it triggers a security breach, I was wondering if you could talk more about what that process looks like, or just clarifying if there's any disciplinary actions or consequences as part of this policy that you're suggesting.
Thanks, Mrs. Hughes. Mr. Lutz, that exceeds my experience. I'm not sure how that gets processed. Could you talk about it? Because I know that's your wheelhouse.
Sure. So we get an alert if there's inappropriate content based on a lot of different categories. And if something comes through, we let the principal know, and we also investigate what it is and communicate that to the principal, and then they talk to the student, and whatever discipline is needed is given.
And I guess I'm just trying to, what I'm driving at is that it's not creating new disciplinary measures that are, or more ways for, I don't know how to say it. For, like, it's not more ways for kids to get in trouble necessarily. It's just a way to monitor. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, this is a system we've had in place since I've been here with LineWise, so this is nothing new.
And I think, Mrs. Hughes, it depends on the nature of what's happened. So some material in the investigation of what happened in the discussion with the student is truly a learning opportunity. And I think, most of what we do with discipline, we try to approach it as we're here to educate. And so when there's an opportunity to educate or clarify or explain, we do. But we also want to hold kids accountable. So I think it's each situation is just might be a little bit different, but the context of the story and the site, and we've had students who have gone seeking information on mental health services or something around suicide. And so that we've triggered a clinical team response because that's what's needed. Does that make sense? So I think it depends on what kind of breach or alert has come up and what we do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was just thinking about, does it create more work for disciplinary actions? And then the other part was just from an equity standpoint, making sure it's not used against some students, in a particular way. So I appreciate your answer. Thank you for clarifying.
Dr. Johnson, if I could just also
course.
share another aspect of this. So for Ms. Hughes and for all the members of the board, you're aware that we have a policy 815, acceptable use of technology and technology devices. And we reviewed that policy at length as we reviewed these upcoming proposed changes in our schools. We don't see any need to change that policy. It's comprehensive and recommended by the PSBA as written. However, I think it's important to mention that this line-wise filter is on all district devices. So that includes my cell phone, every administrator's cell phone, all district laptops, any iPads that are used by district staff and students, as well as Chromebooks. And so breaches can occur from a variety of angles. And so if we have any concerns about staff devices and breaches, that goes through our Department of Human Resources, and Mr. Lutz works with Ms. Kerr to investigate any of those concerns. When it comes to students, as Mr. Lutz mentioned, it goes directly to the principal for their investigation. And there are a number of times where security breaches that are based on a set of code words that are utilized to alert us that perhaps there is a concern. As Dr. Johnson mentioned, it may be a suicide risk, but it also may be a terroristic threat, or it may just be a student using a proxy to bypass our filters to get to, video of something that they would like to see that we don't want them to see. And so in any of those cases, we do a thorough investigation and then determine based on our code of conduct, if it's a student, based on our board policy, if it's a student or a staff member, what the next steps are. And sometimes it's strengthening the filter. The whitelisting for K-8 will allow us to address some of the concerns that were raised by parents. But students are very bright. We have some students right in the room now who are aware. Students are very bright and will attempt to use proxies to bypass the filters we have in place. And when those issues occur, I see Isaac smiling, when those issues occur, it's our tech team's responsibility when they get those alerts to respond. And I will tell you that it is very specific and down to there is a Chromebook in this classroom, and that Chromebook needs to be pulled for content. And so the responses are very quick, and we do our very best to follow board policy in investigating anything like that. And as recently as in the last few days, concerns over potential content. So, and that's with adults. And so I want you to know that we take very seriously the security, the cybersecurity of the district. And this is just one area of that security. And the other thing I want to mention, and then I'll turn it back over to Dr. Johnston, is that at the high school, while we're not whitelisting because of the age of the students, we are maintaining a moderate level of filtering, which is for 11 years and older. So the students at the high school are overwhelmingly 14 or older. The filter we are using is approved for students who are 11 or older. So we feel it's a safe level for the high school group.
Thanks, Dr. Yannico. Any other questions from the members of the committee? Okay. Now that I'm back online, middle school lunch and the Chromebooks. Any questions or concerns about that? All right. And last, but certainly not least, our high school, we are expanding our use of cell phone hotels in our classrooms. We piloted, some of you may recall that Dr. Rittenhouse was here last year and spoke a little bit about this project. And then Dr. Yannicone, Dr. Rittenhouse and I had the chance with our student advisory group last year to have conversations with students. And so we are expanding it to all classrooms, access only during the class period under direction from the teacher. They may use their cell phone during class changes, lunch and learn, and study hall. I just want to make clear that we understand that there is a lot of news coverage of this idea of having students lock their phones in a box upon the arrival at school. And we consciously had a conversation about what we thought was in our best interest for our area and our students. And I think what we understand is the students in our high school are soon to be young adults. And so we feel really strongly that we need to set expectations that are reasonable and appropriate, but understand that in this day and age, they are going to have to make those choices sooner rather than later for themselves of how to stay focused. And so we believe that during class change and during lunch and learn and study hall are appropriate times to use their phones. That may be appropriate under the direction of their teacher, but primarily they will be placed in cell phone hotels, which is like a storage caddy, at the start of the class period and kept there until students are getting ready to be dismissed from the space. And then the students will each take it out before they're able to exit. Dr. Rittenhouse is serving as Vanna White today. And he does in fact have our exact cell phone caddy for you to see. Cell phone hotel. Very excellent job, Dr. Ritt. It was very painless for you to put your phone away. Excellent job. And so this is new in that we are expanding its use, and we'll talk a little bit about how that's been addressed in our code of conduct. I'm going to invite Dr. Rittenhouse to talk at that time about our project and where we are. But I just wanted to make sure that you all were clear on that this is what we are recommending for the coming year. Questions or comments? Okay. And so we are continuing to focus on a collaborative approach. As I said in the beginning, I do believe that we have to work collectively. We can put all of these steps in place during school hours. That does nothing for after school hours or weekends or the summer vacations when we're not sort of overseeing the hourly care and supervision of our students. And so we are trying to work with families to help them establish the routines and patterns and expectations in their homes within that are agreeable to them. And so we hope that families are understanding the impact of the use of these various devices. They're encouraging breaks and setting limits and setting expectations. And then I think one of the things we're talking about even with our high school faculty and with ourselves is, are we modeling the behaviors we're expecting our children to do? Several years ago, we had a speaker here in the district who talked about that a lot. We had a family and student presentation together. And students were asked sort of how great is your family at modeling what they tell you to do about phones, you know, and it happens in my very own house, right? The next thing you know, you're stopping a conversation to go and check your phone and what's happening and, you know, taking your watch off. So I think there's a adult component that we're responsible to. And so we're asking families to help us help our students to get where we want them to go. And so, but we all have responsibilities, we all have roles. And so we're looking to be really thoughtful about our integration of technology. We're looking to support students' online activities. We really want to help our families support students and establishing expectations outside of school, and for students to understand why this is important for their overall mental health and well-being, and to develop really good focus skills for learning. We know that families are responsible to sort of set expectations for technology use within their home. That's not the school's responsibility to speak to that. But we want to make sure that they have the tools they need, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. We're asking families to join us in modeling healthy technology habits. I did say this and I mean it. Each of our principals is going to talk with their staff about making sure that we're being mindful of our technology modeling within our faculty meetings at the beginning of the school year, so that we're not sort of asking one thing but doing another. So we too are looking to be models. And making sure we're asking families again that we only know what we can see, the reports we get. If there is a concern, please reach out to your child's principal. Please let us know. Sometimes there are things that are getting around us, but if someone knows that, we ask that they not sit on it, but instead reach out and let us know so we can investigate and take care of it. Students have a role in this too. For elementary students, we expect them to understand that devices are primarily for educational purposes. They need to take breaks from those screens. They should be reporting online issues. We've had 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who have had online difficulty with outside of the school building and school day. We ask that gets reported to a trusted adult. That may be their family, that may be someone at school, and that those devices stay at home. At the middle school, we're asking that they continue to honor those expectations for technology use from school and from home, and that they also bring forward any challenges they have to either their parents or their teachers. Continuing to be active, be physical, be social. It is a coping mechanism. And so we want to make sure that if kids are feeling like they are disconnected and they're using their phones or their devices as a way to feel social, to make sure that someone knows here at school so that we can try to build those skills. At high school, we're really hoping that they're going to continue to build, prioritize academic use of technology, balancing offline and online life, but being aware, as Mr. Lutz did last year, about sort of the digital footprint they're leaving behind. Colleges, universities, employers, the armed services are checking online profiles, and students, we want to continue to make sure that we're educating students about the choices that they're making and the way they're engaging. There is no privacy. There is no one will ever see this. Someone will see something sometime. And again, continuing to reach out to our team when there's concerns. And ultimately, we're reaching out to the broader community, right? Making sure that that there are programs being offered and that school initiatives are being supported, and that we're having continued conversations. It has been really helpful and thoughtful for us to engage with families in a lot of different ways over the past year about technology use and where we are going. And so we continue to engage and look forward to continued work on this area, because different technology we haven't even thought of yet will be around, I'm sure, within the year. Some brand new products, some brand new device and platform will emerge. And we would like to continue to partnership on that. We are in the newsletter we're pushing out there. Common Sense Media has a lot of resources and materials for families. We're going to share those links in that newsletter. Family tech planners are really great for a conversation on what do we believe as a family about technology. And I think at different times, revisiting that with our children as parents can be really beneficial. Dr. Lutz, can you talk a little bit about our 2 support opportunities coming up this year?
Sure, thank you. So we're very excited. So both the Office of Student Services and the Office of Support Services has put together some information series for parents and community members, family members, so that you can learn more about a variety of topics. The first one that I want to highlight, you may have heard the buzz in the news. The Anxious Generation has been a book been published that has created a lot of talk around how technology and anxiety are inextricably linked. And so our very adept and skilled psychologists are going to be taking on and offering a book club. It's a really meaty book. There's lots of great information in it. And so if you're interested, these flyers will be coming out in some of the information that we're sharing. I believe Dr. Johnston is going to include them in the information that she's sending out to families in the upcoming days. So there's an opportunity for parents to come out and learn more about that book, to read that book collaboratively, and to have some great discussions with both our psychologists and some of our administrators, and also with some of your fellow parents and community members. Our second option is our family information series. This year it's called It's Tough to Be a Parent, because it really is in these ever-changing times. So we have a wide variety of topics each month. All of these sessions will be online. We found that when we do online sessions, we get a lot more parent participation, and parents are able to, still cook dinner while listening to the information, or get your kids to the soccer field, the baseball field, wherever they need to go. We have a lot of really skilled clinicians that'll be coming out. I do want to highlight in October, anxiety in children and teens is going to be our topic. We know that there's, parents who have seen increasing anxiety, and we want to help support you with strategies for what you can do in your household with your child. We also have a session called 21st Century Teens. That'll be from our longtime partner, Be Part of the Conversation. They'll be offering tips on, some of those cell phone topics, things of that nature, how to have that conversation with your teen. What is appropriate social media sites for your household that you think that your child should be allowed access to? So that'll be February 19th. And this year we have contracted with Max Stossel. You may have heard of him. He is a well-renowned speaker, and he does a social awakening presentation. Last year, Germantown Academy had him at their site. He will be joining us, and he's going to talk us through social media, teens, some of the research, and talk about how to balance that life. Technology is something that all children are going to have to use at some point. And so it's really about maintaining those healthy boundaries. So those are just a few of our offerings, but we hope to see a lot of family, community members, and parents out at our sessions this year.
Thanks, Dr. Lutz. I know you and Dr. Dennis have worked really hard to find innovative and creative ways to continue to partner with our families, providing resources and opportunities to learn and grow together. So I am grateful for your leadership and work in that area. So thanks very much. Any questions around any of this so far from our members of our school board? Okey-doke. So finally, just as I said to you, we talked about how are we going to communicate with families. We have a SMORE newsletter that says all of this. As you can imagine, I used a lot of words. I did try to provide bullet points and graphics to help make it a little bit easier, but I really did want to be well represented in all the work that went from our team this summer in creating these decisions. We did not do it lightly. We thought very long and hard about what was in the best interests of our school and our students, and what we thought would really help us reach our goals. But of course, we still have students to talk to too. So for the high school, it's my understanding there will be a grade level meetings held to discuss and review the expectations. At middle school, they're having town halls where they'll review the changes in the cafeteria. And in elementary, that discussion will happen just during normal class meetings as it has before. And with that, I'm gonna, unless there are questions for me about that communication, and I'm just confirming that that's okay with the team for me to push, that we're fine to proceed. Yes, okay.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. I really appreciate all that your team is putting into this. There's a lot of really important topics, and I definitely appreciate the creativity and bringing parents together, and it's great. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Taratuski. I appreciate it. We're excited. We feel good about the work, and we feel good about how it will contribute to our school communities. So I think we're all we feel like we found the right balance for us for this coming year. Dr. Lutz, I'm going to hand it to you to talk a little bit about the proposed changes in our code of conduct, and then I know you're going to hand it to Dr. Rittenhouse.
Absolutely, thank you. So each year, starting in the late spring and into the summer months, all of our buildings and our building administrators look over our student handbooks, our family information that we provide, and especially our code of conducts. And part of that reason is we're always looking to make sure that we're aligning to our board policies, making sure if any changes are made in those board policies, or if there's been any updates to laws or school code, that we capture all of that information and get it out to our families so that you know what to expect for the school year. In this case, back at our May academic affairs, we brought forth just a few changes to our codes of conduct and our student handbooks. So for instance, every single year we update our homeless information to make sure that we're current. And every year we make sure that we look over our attendance policies and bring those up to date. But in doing some of this work this summer and looking at the technology, our high school in particular, where cell phones were permitted for students, have really they dived into that work. And as you heard from Dr. Johnston, they have come up with some procedures that they believe will be in the best interest of students in order to really make sure that when students are in class with their teachers, they're able to focus on their learning opportunities and they're not distracted by their cell phones. They're able to use their Chromebooks to still access information that their teachers want them to access, and so that teachers aren't also managing those cell phone distractions while trying to instruct students or get them engaged in learning activities. So I know that Dr. Rittenhouse and his team have spent a lot of time doing some really in-depth research into this. There's a lot of great resources out there that he's been sharing. He's been talking to faculty, students, and some parents. And so I'm going to turn it over to him to really talk about how his code of conduct is going to change with regards to cell phones.
Thank you. And you can see, our research-based approach to learning is, reduction, like it's been spoken about, a reduction of distractions, enhanced academic performance based on the research, improved classroom behavior, face-to-face interaction, and reduction of cyberbullying and social media pressure. And it's something that we really studied in the spring and the summer. Dr. Scragan's here with me too, one of the assistant principals here. So that's our rationale, which is, research-based. It's also based on walkthroughs, classroom observations. I had 3 listening sessions with students. I had 2 listening sessions with staff, meeting with our building reps and speaking at length to the administrative team in the district. Cell phone hotels look as so, and they, this is what we have bought, and this is what I bought last year for our pilot, and it's a, soft cloth, like I showed earlier, and you just put your cell phone here, and then there's the question, do you want them to be clear? Do you want them to be plastic? Do you, there's all different options. We took the basic approach of the cell phone hotel in each classroom. This past year, during the pilot, I would say about 20 teachers out of 60, so 1 in 3, had some type of policy that students deposit their cell phone upon entry and then pick their cell phone up at the end of the period. They can be used in between classes, during lunch, study hall, before school, after school. Teachers can also grant permission for cell phones and headphone use as needed. In the past, some teachers given extra credit. We spent a really productive spring and looking at our grading policies with our new student information system, and that's dovetailed really nice with that, where we have which we call habits of working and learning. So it's not extra credit for putting your cell phone on the door. It's just becoming an effective learner, and it would be part of that, grade potentially. And then students obviously with health needs would be accommodated. We have some students who check blood sugar levels, et cetera, with their phone. Obviously, we would make exceptions there. Consequences, high school code of conduct changes, and for consistency, this year, I'll be handling discipline solely as the high school principal, and you can go through that, first offense, second offense, third offense, fourth offense, and then all subsequent offenses. We, of course, always hope we don't get past the first offense, and I'm really proud to say here at the high school, we rarely do. We have wonderful kids here. But it's having I think Dr. Johnson mentioned, it's having a conversation with the students regarding expectations and, that what you're doing in the classroom, and it's to strike a balance. I don't fail to notice to the right is a server, in front of me is a television, my computer's here, personal phone, school phone, and Scott has his personal cell phone. We have 8 devices here within 10 feet of each other, and I've checked my phone a couple times. So both phones. I have to pick my car up from Moreland Auto and before 5 o'clock. So yeah, certainly we understand that, and it's taking that distraction away from students, and again, administrative family contact and the detention, and then you can go forward. It's always the administration contacting the family, and it's also in no instance am I asking any staff member to take a phone or do anything along those lines, that I would be handling that. But it's always going home, it's always having family contact at detention, to detention. Like I said, in-school suspension, it's progressive discipline. And again, I'm proud to say we rarely have to get to those levels. So, but again, it's having the conversation with the students.
Thanks, Dr. Rittenhouse. Dr. Lutz, you want to talk about the middle school?
If we have
Sure.
questions, should we wait till all 3
Oh,
schools
no,
are
go ahead. I'm
presented?
sorry. Sure.
Sorry, I didn't want to jump in if it wasn't. I was just curious, Dr. Rittenhouse, if you could talk a little bit about, for the cell phone hotels, do those live like on the teacher's desk? I'm just curious about also liability for the teachers, like if a cell phone gets stolen or something, like are they
Well,
safely
I'm proud.
stored?
And Dr. Z's here. I don't know if we had any situations last year of any cell phones being taken. Kids leave each other's cell phones alone. Typically the cell phone hotel is hung on the door. It's not at the teacher desk. And that's the closet door. Every classroom has a closet, and it just hangs on the classroom door. And then as you walk in, you just put them in the little slot. Like I said, I particularly social studies really embraced the pilot. Kids, it's after a week or two, it just became natural. Mr. Igo didn't say put your cell phones in there. The kid just walked in and just put them in there. So yeah, they almost always. There's a couple classes without closets, and they use magnets on their metal filing cabinet. But like I said, they're the pilot teachers, it seemed to work pretty well this year for them.
Thanks, Dr. Ritt. Mrs. Hughes, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to make sure there was no liability concern for like taking a student's personal property and then making it the responsibility of the teacher.
I've been very clear with the teachers, and will be when they return, that I don't want them to handle any phones. Like if the kid would say, look, I'm not giving you my phone. I'm waiting to hear, I'm waiting to hear from my employer regarding a new job and blah, something along those lines, whatever it would be. There's no time where the teacher would say, give me the phone. And quite frankly, we rarely do that unless there's a safety issue where I would say, I just would ask the student just to have the conversation with me after class. So yeah, we would, that liability piece. And like I said, the kids have been pretty good not taking each other's phones, or it's just really, yeah. So, and they're also on the cell phone hotel too, they're numbered too, also here. So, you can kind of see what number you have and you're assigned. I think a lot of classes you're assigned that same number every day. So you can kind of see, where your phone is or where it is not.
Thanks,
you.
Dr. Ritt.
Of course.
All right.
Oh,
Dr.
sorry,
Lutz?
I just had one question for Dr.
Sure.
Rittenhouse.
Sure, Dr. Aberley.
Thank you. Just to understand, so are you still seeing the distraction from things like smart watches with like text messaging from the phones that are still in the classroom, or is that less of a problem in high school?
I don't have a way of knowing how they're texting back and forth. I would say we haven't had any, I haven't got involved in any smartwatch situation. It's a good question. I mean, it's a good question. So, obviously if the phone's up on the hotel, you could still communicate with your watch. And that gets a little more, that's a whole different thing. Adults do the same
Yeah.
thing, so it's a great question. So
It'd be
I
interesting to
suspect-
see if that becomes problematic, but
That's
yeah,
right.
it's hard to control.
I think that's where we have some opportunity to really do some ongoing learning with our learners, right? What are the world, when I'm in a meeting, am I silencing, do not using those settings that phones have now created where it's do not disturb or trying to do focus, right? How can I set my alarms? And I think as we start to take the phones away, we may actually see what you're saying. Right now, it would be hard for us to tell because they've had their phones. So I think we'll be in a position over the course of the year to continue to refine and revise these guidelines and frameworks and decisions as we proceed.
And the other thing too is the one thing I've gotten some of the input from students, and they're the user, they're the clients, is they appreciate that the distraction is gone. That they can concentrate on their civics class or on their Spanish 3 class, and like I said, some teachers allow them to use it for classrooms, and sometimes kids forget their Chromebooks and they use the phone. Like there's other reasons, but generally kids were positive on yes, the distraction is taken, it's been taken away. And then in 80 minutes, I get it back.
All right. Dr. Lutz, I'm going to return it to you to talk about sort of status quo with the middle school.
Yes, I was going to say, so our middle school is staying status quo. So cell phones have been prohibited for use during the day. It was always an expectation for our middle school students that they would leave them in their lockers when they first went in the morning and that they could get them back out at the end of the day. That will remain in effect. As you know, middle school students don't like to live. But the middle school has always been creative about how they deal with chronic offenders for cell phones. There is a cell phone daycare located in the front office where students come in, and similarly to what they do at the high school, only in each classroom, but students leave their phones in the front office where it is always manned, and we have not had any problems with theft or broken phones, anything of that nature. But our middle school will continue with those procedures moving into the new school year.
Thanks, Dr. Lutz. So we would anticipate that to be an action item for the Board of School Directors to propose and approve the updated code of conduct at Tuesday night's meeting with approval from this group to move forward. Dr. Taratusky, you believe that that's agreeable to the team?
Yes, that's fine.
Great. Thank you. I wanted to leave a few minutes in the event there was public comment. At this time, I believe that we don't have any participants from the public. And so I don't believe that there'll be any public comment at this time. Our next meeting date is scheduled to be October 2024. I did send a little note to our members of our committee here to look forward to a presentation from our building principals on our data and student performance from last year. And so we'll be ready to do that for you in mid-October. I wanted to check and see if there were any final committee comments, either from the members of our board, our students, or our administrators. Any final comments today?
I appreciate everybody's time. I also appreciate the students' time.
I was curious if there were any comments from the students on all of this. Not to put them on the spot at all, but just
Oh, no, not on the spot at all.
wondering what they're thinking.
That's Sophia.
I'm happy to comment if that's all right.
Please.
I think that these are great steps. I mean, I've had a couple cell phone parking lots in my classes, and I think they work wonders. I've definitely felt a lot more focused. So I think this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Thanks very
Okay.
much.
With Sophia, like definitely in classes where I think I'm doing pretty well, but I could use some help. Putting my cell phone away in the hotel or parking garage is really helpful, and it really helps me. And I would think that the entire classroom learning and managing new skills and the class communication.
Nice.
That's great. Good to
All right.
hear.
Any other final comments for today?
Thank
This
you
was
all for everything. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Taratusky. This was a heavy lift to ask all of you to be present this afternoon in mid-August. We don't usually do that, but we thought it was really important that we had support from the board and that you understood sort of what we were recommending and why and our rationale. So I look forward to continued collaboration as we move into the school year. We will be pushing out that newsletter to families through School Messenger tomorrow morning. Dr. Yannicone, any final comments from you?
I just want to, again, as you said, thank the members of the board, thank our new student representatives for your attendance and your participation. And most importantly, our administrative team, they worked really hard this summer to craft a cohesive plan. While I don't want Mr. Lutz's efforts in transitioning our entire district system over the summer months to go unnoticed, I know that the hot topic is the technology piece related to student access and integration of devices. But it was a massive lift. And we're thrilled that we have over 4,000 families who seamlessly shifted to the new system. Students were able to get access to their schedules. And we've had overwhelmingly positive commentary in the last 24 hours. So we're thrilled, knock on wood, that things are continuing to go well with the new system. So thanks to everybody on the call, and we appreciate your time, and we'll move the code of conduct onto the board agenda. And Dr. Taratusky, I believe you're going to do the presentation of the report on Tuesday night. Thank you very much.
I can do that. I did have one question before we go, but this is more so to think about for a future meeting. And I did email you, Dr. Yannicone, about this one, which is, while it is really important to help to put in place some of these external things that will help kids to limit their access to their phones and social media. And I guess my thought too is more on the other end, and I appreciate the Max Stossel work with that, but about educating students about the impact of their social media presence on themselves and others. And I'm sure that Dr. Yannicone and that everybody has heard about the debacle here in Great Valley, where I sit. And the biggest concern was the scope of it and the lack of forethought. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, but just in, trying to tackle this problem from all sides, I guess, and helping our kids to develop as respectful citizens and learners, right? So I just wanted to maybe think about how we could, as an academic affairs committee, understand what happens in the curriculum, not just some of the, one-off kinds of things that help educate kids about their social media presence. So
absolutely. I think that we could share, and Dr. Johnston, perhaps at a future academic affairs meeting, we could share information about our digital citizenship program, the ways in which we embed that digital citizenship within our curriculum.
Yeah, we'll have to make a decision, and Dr. Yannicone, you and I can work with the team, because we're in curriculum revision for that area. Some of that conversation might be we have to decide sort of what we want to talk about, what is or what we're proposing going forward. So as we do some revision of the curriculum, and it may be both, that's not a problem either. I do want to be, genuine in that we're looking to review that part of the curriculum this year. That is a major area. And I think it's timely. So I look forward to perhaps a both and here's where we are and here's where we think we need to go.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I do think that there's a lot about that is digital citizenship that is very good, but we all know that kids know a lot of things and they learn them, but it's the bridge between the knowledge and the implementation in daily life that needs help. So I think that it's really good that you're taking a second look at it this year.
Me too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mhm.
I appreciate everyone being with us today. It is 4:06 and I know it's been a long afternoon and there's beautiful weather outside to go and enjoy. So I appreciate your time. Dr. Teretuski, I'll send you a draft of some minutes for you to use if you'd like.
Yes,
And everyone
thanks.
else, I will see you real soon. Thanks very much for
Appreciate
being
it.
here today.
Take care.